Hey there, it's Brian. A few months back, I had quartered an Ensete to propagate this plant by division, and now I'm ready to take all of the new plants that have come from those original quarters and divide those out and put them in their own pots. Now remember when I did this, 2 of the quarters that I used, I left roots on them. 2 of the quarters, I took the roots off, just because this is something you hear a lot watching banana propagation videos. People talk about roots on, roots off, does it matter, does it not matter? We're going to do a test and find out if they make a difference. Now, first thing I'm going to do is make some soil. I'm using an old plastic bin here for mixing. This is 1/3 potting soil, 1/3 perlite, 1/3 steer manure, roughly. I'm going to give that a good mix and start to fill up some pots. These are 1/2 gallon, super flimsy, but they'll get the job done. And they didn't cost very much. Now it's time to start splitting up the clumps. I'm using a kitchen knife to do this. It's pretty sharp. I'm looking at the whole clump and trying to find a gap somewhere in the middle, so the first cut splits this in half. Now, full disclosure, this is my first time propagating Ensetes. I'm assuming it's going to work like other types of bananas that I've propagated in the past. So I'm trying to get as many stems as possible with at least 1 root on them. The root doesn't need to be very big. I'm going to want at least 1 root on a stem in order for that stem to have a chance. Now, I don't see a way to do this without sacrificing some of these stems. They're just too close together. And so you're going to end up cutting some of these away and not getting any root on them. I would imagine if you took a little bit more time and thought this out a little bit more, you could save additional stems than what I'm getting. But I'm just going through and making some quick cuts and separating them as best I can without putting too much effort into it. Some of these I'm leaving with 2 or 3 stems on them. The roots just don't look like they could be easily split. And I leave these smaller clumps so that they can develop further. In the future, I might be able to split them and get 2 or 3 viable plants. Otherwise, worst case, I'll just cut the stems off and get 1 plant. Here you can see from 2 quarters, I've gotten at least 12 viable plants. The ones on the right came from a quarter that had roots. The ones on the left came from a quarter that didn't have roots. The ones that came from the quarters that had roots are about twice the size of the ones that came from quarters that didn't have roots. But in this process of going through and dividing these out, some of the pieces from the non-root starts actually have more roots now than some of the pieces that came from the roots start. So I would guess that their development resets from here a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how these develop and whether or not the final plants are impacted by the pieces starting off with roots or not starting off with roots. After splitting out the other 2 quarters, I ended up with a total of 23 individual pots. This is the second half that you're seeing here. They'll go into my garage for now as it's still below freezing outside some nights. And I'm not trying to have to move these things in every 3 nights to keep them from dying. That's it for this one. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Appreciate the support.